The yellowing leaf is not a death warrant. Most people look at a collapsing squash vine or a tomato plant whose stems have turned the brittle colour of dry cardboard and they see an ending. They get the shovel, they uproot the entire system, toss it to the back of the property and blame the weather. But if you look at that exact same plant through the lens of modern agronomy, you find something the chemical companies have spent 60 years trying to make you forget. The plant is not dead. It is paralyzed. It has hit a biological wall where the top 3 inches of your soil can no longer supply the specific minerals needed to pull nutrition through the root hairs. What looks like rot is starvation in a landscape of plenty. And you can reverse that systemic collapse in less than 48 hours using things currently sitting at the bottom of your kitchen trash can. 5 specific, zero-cost liquid extractions that university soil extensions have tested, that traditional growers have guarded for generations, and that the modern agricultural industry cannot sell you because you already own the raw materials. This is not about making your garden look pretty. This is about learning to read what a dying plant is actually saying and answering it before it's too late. The first line of defense begins with something you peel off every time you make soup and drop straight into the bin: the dry, papery wrapper of the common yellow onion. Before another fistful of those skins hits the trash, consider a basic question of plant anatomy. Which part of the onion holds the highest concentration of protective compounds? The wet, sweet flesh we cook with, or the dry outer layer we throw away? It isn't the flesh, it's the skin. By a significant margin. Those paper-thin outer layers carry concentrated deposits of water-soluble potassium, calcium, magnesium, and a bioflavonoid called quercetin, the same compound found in apples and red wine that researchers study for its anti-inflammatory properties in the human body. Inside a fruiting vegetable, quercetin does similar protective work. It stabilizes cellular walls when afternoon heat pushes past 95 degrees. It signals the plant's internal defense systems to prepare for fungal pressure before the spores can land. It slows the spread of stem rot from the inside out. Now, this is where the conventional blog advice goes completely off the rails. People hear about onion skins and they immediately dig them directly into the soil around their plants. Raw, dry skins take months to break down in a standard backyard bed. While those fibers sit there waiting to decompose, the plant above them continues to starve. By the time the nitrogen cycle processes those skins, the season is already gone. The real secret isn't decomposition, it is extraction. Water is a universal solvent. When you submerge a large handful of dry onion wrappers in a quart of clean, room-temperature water and leave it for 24 hours, the liquid shifts. It turns the color of weak afternoon tea. By the second day, it deepens into dark amber. That shift is the visual proof that the cellular bonds have broken, that the potassium, the calcium, and the quercetin have left the paper fibers and dissolved completely into the liquid. They are now in an ionic state. The moment you pour that amber fluid over a drooping root zone, the plant doesn't wait for the soil to digest anything. It absorbs those minerals within minutes. Stems thicken within days. New growth comes in deeper green. Flower production picks back up within a week. And something subtler happens beneath the surface. The plant's own immune response strengthens. Seedling wilt fades, stem rot slows. Plants that should have been composted are still standing at frost. No garden centre in the country will put that recipe on a billboard. There is no corporate trademark for kitchen waste. There is no shelf space for something you make in an old mayonnaise jar behind your sink. But while onion skins fix the immediate crisis inside the plant's cells, the second liquid targets something larger. The billions of microscopic organisms living in the darkness beneath your garden. Every time you rinse a pot of raw white rice before cooking, you pour a biological catalyst down the drain. The cloudy water that runs off those grains carries complex starches, water-soluble B vitamins, and trace amounts of zinc and iron. Used fresh, it provides a mild, pleasant boost. But take that same cloudy water, pour it into a clean glass jar, cover it with a loose cloth, and leave it on the counter for 4 days, and it transforms into an entirely different tool. The liquid develops a distinct, faintly sharp scent, like the first breath of a sourdough starter. Most people smell that sour note and assume the water has spoiled. They throw it out. And in doing so, they waste the most sophisticated biological response their soil will ever encounter. That sour aroma is the signature of a massive microbial explosion. Wild yeasts and indigenous lactic acid bacteria have moved into the starches and multiplied by the hundreds of millions. In the late 20th century, agricultural researcher Dr. Teruo Higa, a professor at the University of the Ryukyus, demonstrated that these specific strains of lactic acid bacteria possess a unique ability. They can enter compacted, depleted soil and dissolve locked-up phosphate deposits that commercial chemical fertilizers cannot touch. His framework, called Effective Microorganisms, is now applied on farms in more than 150 countries. The microbes in fermented rice water are the same ones at the center of that research. Free, in your kitchen, ready in 5 days. When this liquid hits the soil, the starches and sugars act as a feast. The soil ecosystem wakes up, multiplies, gets to work. Within a single week, the living population of beneficial organisms in the top inch of treated soil can triple. One thimble of dirt from a treated bed, looked at under a lens, holds more active working life than the entire human population of Europe, packed into a space smaller than a coffee bean. Chemical fertilizers behave like a single handout meal. They feed the plant for a day and leave the system dependent on the next application. The fermented water builds the structure that allows the soil to feed itself. 2 rules that determine whether this works or doesn't. First, ferment it. 3 to 5 days minimum. Fresh rice rinse water is almost inert by comparison. If the liquid doesn't carry that faint sour tang, it isn't ready. Second, dilute it. 1 part ferment to 10 parts clean water. The concentrated lactic acid applied straight from the jar will drop the local soil pH fast enough to scorch the fine root hairs that absorb water. Diluted correctly, it can go down weekly through the entire growing season. Still, a plant actively collapsing today cannot wait a week for the soil biology to rebuild itself. If your leaves are turning pale yellow from the bottom up, your garden is asking for nitrogen, immediately. That is where the third extraction becomes necessary. Go look inside the crisper drawer of your refrigerator. There is almost certainly a soft tomato at the bottom, a wrinkled pepper, a head of lettuce that turned to brown mush before anyone made a salad. Most people view those scraps as an annoyance. They wrap them in plastic and send them to a landfill where they become methane gas in a dark pit. But those rotting vegetables are the fastest acting source of natural nitrogen available in the average household. A German chemist named Justus von Liebig formulated the principle behind this in the 1840s. His law of the minimum showed that a plant's growth is capped not by the nutrients it has in abundance, but by the single one it has the least of. Picture an old wooden barrel built with staves of different heights. You can pour water into that barrel until your arms give out, but the liquid only rises as high as the shortest board. It doesn't matter if your potassium stave is 6 feet tall. If your nitrogen stave is 3 inches high, that is where your harvest stops. In almost every backyard vegetable garden across North America, nitrogen is the shortest stave in the barrel. Green kitchen scraps carry a low carbon-to-nitrogen ratio, meaning relative to their fiber content, they are densely packed with nitrogen. Collect those bruised greens and overripe fruits. Crush them into the bottom of a 5-gallon bucket. Weight them down with a brick to keep them fully submerged. Fill the rest with tap water and leave it for 14 days. Anaerobic and aerobic bacteria break down the cellular walls of the waste. The nitrogen locked inside the tissue is stripped out and suspended in the liquid, a process called nitrogen mineralization, and it moves faster in water than in any compost pile. The water will turn dark, murky, and pungent. That smell is nitrogen changing into an available form. Do not spray this liquid on the leaves. Do not pour it undiluted. The digestate is strong enough to burn the stomata on your foliage within 48 hours and scorch root hairs beyond recovery. This goes into the root zone only, broken down to 1 part scrap liquid to 30 parts clean water, until it looks like very pale straw. Pour it directly onto the bare earth around the base of your heaviest feeding crops. Within 5 days, pale, stagnant leaves shift 2 full shades darker. New shoots push out from the stem joints where nothing was forming before. The short stave is suddenly lifted, and the entire plant can finally use the rest of the nutrients already waiting in the earth. Here is the quiet truth beneath all of this. The average kitchen produces more nitrogen in a single week than a small vegetable garden needs in a month. The nutrients are not scarce, they are simply being routed to the landfill instead of the garden bed. But what happens when the plant isn't missing just one mineral? What happens when it's running a multi-layered deficiency you cannot diagnose by eye alone? You do not go to the box store and buy 5 different bags of chemical adjustments. You build the full-spectrum breakfast infusion. A 5-ingredient recipe designed to address every major macro and micronutrient deficit simultaneously. 3 staple items from the morning table: old banana peels, dried eggshells, and the wet coffee grounds left over in your brewer. Banana peels deliver organic potassium, the engine that drives flour production and determines the size of your fruit. A tomato short on potassium sets small, watery fruits with skins that split at ripening. Crushed eggshells provide calcium carbonate to reinforce cell structure and prevent blossom end rot, that black, sunken patch at the bottom of an otherwise beautiful tomato that drives gardeners to distraction every summer. And coffee grounds supply a steady, long-term release of nitrogen. Stop here for a moment, because this is where the internet has been wrong for 20 years. You have read on some lifestyle blog that pouring coffee grounds onto your soil makes the bed highly acidic. That claim is a half-truth stretched into a full myth. Fresh, unbrewed coffee is indeed acidic, but the moment you run hot water through those grounds to make your morning cup, nearly all of that acid washes away into your mug. The spent grounds left in the filter measure between 6.5 and 6.8 on the pH scale, the exact range where 90% of all vegetables prefer to live. They will not acidify your soil. What they will do is add structural carbon, attract deep-burrowing earthworms, and release their minerals over a 6-week window. Now, 2 specialty ingredients take this recipe from useful to exceptional. The first is a single tablespoon of Epsom salt, magnesium sulfate. Magnesium sits at the dead center of every chlorophyll molecule on this planet. Without it, photosynthesis stops. The leaves begin to yellow between the veins, while the veins themselves stay green, a starvation pattern called interveinal chlorosis. Dissolve the salt into the brew, and it can reverse that pattern within 48 hours. A critical caveat belongs right here. Yellowing has many causes. Nitrogen deficiency yellows the older leaves first. Iron deficiency yellows the youngest leaves. Overwatering can yellow the whole plant at once. Epsom salt addresses magnesium deficiency specifically. When that's the cause, the transformation is fast and dramatic. When the cause is something else, adding more Epsom salt repeatedly will throw the soil's mineral balance off. Diagnose before treating. The second booster is 1 tablespoon of unsulfured blackstrap molasses, not regular pancake syrup. Blackstrap, the thick, bitter version from the final boiling of raw sugarcane, rich in iron, sulfur, and trace minerals. But its primary role in this recipe is one almost no gardening website explains correctly. Blackstrap is microbial fuel. Adding that tablespoon to the brew is like ringing a dinner bell for every beneficial bacterium in the liquid. Populations multiply within hours. Those hyperactive microbes then break down the banana peels, eggshells, and coffee grounds far faster than the ingredients would decompose on their own. Without molasses, a kitchen steep takes 3 weeks to become bioavailable. With molasses, the entire mixture is ready in 3 days. Put the peels, shells, grounds, salt, and molasses into a gallon jug of warm water. Cover it, leave it in a shaded spot for 72 hours. Strain the solids, dilute until it looks like weak coffee, and drench the root zone. The single most common mistake: skipping the molasses. Without the microbial catalyst, the peels and shells sit in the water and release their nutrients slowly, week after week. That 1 tablespoon is the difference between a slow drip fertilizer and an overnight rescue. This recipe covers everything a modern kitchen can provide. But there is one more method. Older than coffee and bananas in American grocery stores. Older than most of the houses in any neighborhood where this video is playing. A method used by every civilization that ever grew its own food. The aged manure extract. Among old-time farmers in the Appalachian Hills and the Pennsylvania countryside, it has another name. The giant tea bag. Before the year 1913, synthetic fertilizer did not exist. Every farm from the valleys of Ohio to the pastures of Europe ran on a closed loop of animal waste and composted plant matter. Then two German scientists, named Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch, developed an industrial process that pulled nitrogen directly out of the atmosphere using massive heat and pressure. That invention fed billions of people. It also broke agriculture. It taught generations of farmers to feed the plant while completely starving the living soil beneath it. And the long-term results of that trade-off are now visible in every struggling backyard. Hard, compacted beds, an absence of earthworms, plants that collapse the moment synthetic inputs stop. Manure tea reverses a century of that damage. Take one large shovelful of completely dried, aged farm manure, chicken, cow, or rabbit, never fresh, and drop it into an old cotton pillowcase or a burlap sack. Tie the top shut with twine. Submerge the entire bundle into a 5-gallon bucket of fresh water. Over the next 4 days, the water acts as an extraction agent, pulling out soluble nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, zinc, and the thousands of complex microbial cultures that live inside a herbivore's digestive tract. The solid matter, the weed seeds, the heavy fibers, stays trapped inside the cloth. You get the full power of the manure without importing weeds into the bed or burning the roots with raw ammonia. The animal you choose changes the outcome significantly. Aged chicken manure carries the highest levels of phosphorus, making it the strongest choice for a garden that has stopped setting flowers. A single cup of chicken manure tea, properly diluted, can push a tired tomato plant back into heavy flowering within a week. Cow manure is milder, exceptional for building the deep humus layer that holds moisture through a drought. Rabbit manure is the quiet advantage of experienced gardeners, the only common manure that can be applied raw to a bed without burning, because the nitrogen is already in a gentle, plant-ready form. Rabbit tea is the safest option for seedlings and consistently underestimated by everyone who hasn't tried it. The single fatal mistake with this method: fresh droppings. Raw manure carries active pathogens and volatile ammonia levels high enough to scorch an entire row of seedlings within 24 hours. The inputs must be dry, dark, and aged for at least 6 full months before they touch the tea bag. No shortcuts on this step. Once the brew is complete, dilute it until it matches the pale color of weak iced tea, roughly 1 part tea to 10 parts clean water. That ratio is the line between a tonic that heals and one that burns. Apply it only during the cool hours, early morning or the last hour before sunset. In the heat of midday, the liquid nitrogen volatilizes into the air before the roots can reach it. In the cool of evening, the soil holds the nutrients and the plant absorbs at its own pace overnight. Old-time farmers swore by the timing. Modern soil science now confirms why. 5 extractions: the onion skin elixir, the fermented rice water, the vegetable scrap digestate, the full-spectrum kitchen brew, the aged manure tea. Every one of them built from what a modern household calls garbage. But here is what connects them, and it is worth sitting with before this video ends. The signals a plant sends when it's struggling are not failure. They are communication. Every yellow leaf, every sagging stem, every flower that closed and didn't reopen is pointing towards something specific that the soil is no longer providing. Your soil isn't empty, it's simply locked. And the moment you understand that, a dying plant stops being a problem to remove and becomes a question to answer. The cure, in almost every case, is already waiting in the kitchen. The next time a tomato starts to yellow, or a pepper stops setting fruit, or a row of seedlings goes pale and still, pause before reaching for the shovel. Look at what you threw away this morning. Which of these 5 fits the problem your garden is running right now? Leave it below. And if you know a gardener still losing more than they're saving this season, pass this along. The old knowledge doesn't need a marketing budget, it just needs someone to remember it.